Hey guys, I'm Chris Buck, and a very warm welcome to Friday Fretworks. And this week, Fender's lost pickup, the Wide Range Humbucker. Now rewind to June 22nd of 1955, and Gibson employee Seth Lever has just filed a patent application that, no doubt he didn't fully appreciate it at the time, but would prove pivotal in defining the sound of electric guitar as we know it today. Now, although that patent application wouldn't be granted for at least another 4 years, Lever's design for a humbucking electric guitar pickup is still ubiquitous some 68 years later, and virtually inseparable from the story of Gibson guitars. Arguably a little bit ahead of its time, Gibson's PAF and subsequent patent number pickups would prove to be at the heart of the shift towards heavier, more distorted electric guitar tones in the late 1960s. It's typified by the likes of Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, Peter Green, Jimmy Page, and of course Ritchie Blackmore, to name but a few. And thus it's probably a very little surprise that Fender, a guitar company that throughout the 1950s, at least in a commercial sense, had near enough monopolised the concept of a commercially available electric guitar, albeit with their traditional kind of single coil, weaker output pickups, sought to follow the prevailing wind. After luring Seth Lever from Kalamazoo to California in 1967 with an offer of $12,000 a year compared to the $9,000 he was receiving at Gibson, Fender tasked the pickup guru with making a pickup that could compete with his existing design, the result of which would prove to be one of the most enigmatic pickup designs ever, steeped in mystery, myth and misnomer, the Wide Range Humbucker. So, what happened? Why were they only made for 8 years? And I guess more importantly, why on earth are we talking about them today? Now, the oft-repeated tale is that, inspired by the success of the humbucking pickup, Fender tasked Seth Lever with designing a pickup that could compete, but without sacrificing that brilliance and top-end clarity and single-coil articulation that you think of when you think of Fender guitars. Unsurprisingly, Seth recalls it slightly differently, recalling that Fender's sales team simply requested a direct copy. Only one problem with that, however. To do so would be infringing on a patent, Seth Lever's own, in fact, that was still very much in force from his time at Gibson. Seth did indeed set about designing a pickup that could compete, and that was fundamentally different enough to not infringe on any copyrights, but would still retain that top-end brilliance and character that you do associate with Fender pickups, with Seth, at the very least, thought should be integral to the project. Now, the answer would come in the form of CuNiFe, or CuNiFe. Let's call the whole thing off. The acronym for an alloy comprised of 60% copper, Cu, 20% nickel, Ni, and 20% iron, Fe. Of course, that acronym comprised of their three alchemical symbols. Now, although its unusual construction would undoubtedly play a massive part in its tonal characteristics, its choice was, unsurprisingly, as a result of its ease of tooling. At the time, it was one of the few available metals that could actually be threaded or turned into a screw. This meant that Seth Lever could circumvent the distinctive bar magnet design of the PAF and actually make magnets out of the pole pieces themselves. While its practicality was undoubtedly at the heart of its choice, CuNiFe's incredibly low iron content, 20% if you recall from its composition, means that it has a very low inductance. Inductance in this case being a pickup's ability to generate current from a magnetic field charge. All of that meaning that the higher frequencies are much more pronounced than they would be in your typical humbucking pickup, which of course uses alnico. Typical alnico magnet being comprised of at least 30 to upwards of 60% iron. To offset this and bring in increased bass response, Seth required more wire on the coils, which of course required a bigger bobbin. Bigger bobbin means the pole pieces are further apart, which picks up a wider range, you can see where I'm going with this, a wider range of string vibration, and as such, the iconic Wide Range Humbucker was born. It was introduced in 1971 and immediately included on the Telecaster Deluxe, Telecaster Thinline, Telecaster Custom, as well as Fender's answer to the ES335, the Starcaster. Over the years, the Wide Range Humbucker has found favour with a truly incredible array of guitar players. Anyone from Keith Richards, to Graham Coxon, to Wes Borland, to Ryan Adams, to Roy Buchanan, to Tom York, to Chris Shiflett, to The Edge, to Johnny Buckland, to Tab Benoit, to Sonic Youth's Lee Ronaldo. So why, until very recently, despite this incredibly rich history, has it not been possible to get hold of a genuine new set of Wide Range Humbuckers for the better part of 50 years? What happened? Despite Seth having found an incredibly clever workaround to his existing Gibson patent, what he or Fender couldn't possibly have foreseen was that CuNiFe's ready availability, primarily because of its relevance to the automotive industry and its inclusion in the likes of speedometers, tachometers and altimeters, would essentially evaporate overnight as all of those dials shifted towards being electronic in the mid to late 1970s. And as such, by 1979, Fender were left with virtually no other option than to discontinue the Wide Range Humbucker as the supply of CuNiFe dried up, thus beginning the Wide Range Humbucker's 41-year hiatus. There have been other pickups resembling Wide Range Humbuckers in Fender's lineup over the years, but it's important to point out their fundamentally different construction. Fender Japan having utilised ceramic magnets, with Fender Mexico having utilised alnico magnets, which essentially just means they are typical humbuckers in an oversized case. However, in 2020, Fender introduced the American Original 70s Telecaster Custom, crucially with CuNiFe magnets, the first time these pickups had been seen, as I said, in the better part of 41 years. Fast forward to 2023, and it's probably of little surprise that clearly having found a reliable source of CuNiFe somewhere, after all of these years, Fender have now introduced the CuNiFe series, not just with a recreation of that original humbucker, but Stratocaster CuNiFe pickups and Jazzmaster CuNiFe pickups. This was a project spearheaded by Tim Shaw, arguably the most notable pickup guru since Seth Lover himself, and now Fender's chief pickup engineer, who set about recreating that original humbucker, but also imagining taking a little bit of creative license and thinking what Seth may have done with CuNiFe if he'd not had just 8 years to work with them. It'd be remiss not to mention several smaller boutique pickup companies who have done incredible work with CuNiFe over the years, presumably finding very small batches of availability somewhere, notably Curtis Novak, Telinator, Mojo, and more recently North Star Pickups. But it is incredibly exciting to see a company not only as big as Fender, but as intrinsic and important to the story of CuNiFe Wide Range Humbuckers, clearly having the facility and the source of CuNiFe to do this on such a mass scale. In recent years, original examples of Wide Range Humbuckers have reached new eye-watering prices on Reverb, so it's very cool to think that a story that otherwise had its last chapter written the better part of 50 years ago now has a new lease of life. As ever, I'm Chris Buck. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe, hit the bell icon if you haven't already, and I shall see you next week for another episode of Friday Fretworks. Cheers guys, take care, see you soon.